Love to have all our beautiful faces on here. Okay. So want to welcome you all. My name is Ben Goldberg. I'm with Simply Solar Rock and Roofers. Brad Hubble, who's going to introduce himself in a second, is my cohort, my better half. And the reason why we are here today is talking shop. And this is presented to you by the Remodelers Forum. And the Remodelers Forum was essentially kind of born out of this idea with Brad and myself and other people that it's so rare that subcontractors, GCs, architects ever collaborate and ever talk about projects and actually discuss what steps or when somebody should be brought in instead of the 13th hour and it's too late. So the Remodelers Forum was literally built around this exact idea where when we used to meet in person, we'd talk shop. We would literally have an agenda and it would end up turning into a lot more collaboration. So we're here today to kind of discuss that idea and collaboration. And we have three wonderful speakers on with us. We've got Zach with Green Bay Remodeling, we've got Florence with Interior Design, and we've got Brad Hubble. So Brad, since you're unmuted right now, feel free to introduce yourself, and then Florence, I'll have you go next.
Yeah, Brad Hubble, Hubble Daily Architecture and Design. Been architect here in the Bay Area, or in Marin even, for almost 30 years. So love working with the people around here doing primarily residential new homes, major remodels. Florence?
Hi everyone, I'm Florence Livingston. I have been in the industry for about 15 years. That's when I graduated from design school. After I had my son, I stepped away for a few years and then moved abroad. So I have been back fully with my practice for almost 5 years. Most of my projects are in Marin and they are mostly remodels with furnishings at the end. And I think I've been a member for about 3 years, Christine. That's right, yeah. So I'm excited to be here today.
And Zach.
Hi everybody, my name is Zach Ilinetsky. I'm from Green Bay Remodeling. I'm the general manager. We've been in the industry for 15 years. Our branch here in Marin is existing for about 3 years now. 1 year as a part of Marin Builders Association and the board of directors. Our company believes in education of customers, a lot of information, and to moving our entire industry forward using technology and other tools that we have. And I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. So that's going to be our panelists today. I do want to encourage you guys, if you guys have any questions now, during, please put them in the chat channel. I will be monitoring that and feeding them in. And the last about 15, 20 minutes will be a section where we can unmute and truly all collaborate and add in. So the first kind of topic that we want to talk about when discussing contractors, designers, and architects is that biggest challenge. What is the biggest challenge, Zach, that you face when doing a major remodel and perhaps design and architect hasn't really been brought in yet? So Zach, what are some of your biggest challenges?
I think one of the things that really is a pain point in our industry when a customer doesn't have a designer or there is no architect is that there is the belief that somehow the project will get organized by itself. There are expectations that I believe that are either not met or not discussed because of the lack of information customers have. When they come even to remodel a small room, take a bathroom, for example, they believe that, it's only to put on tiles and they want to keep the tub, but they only want to do the tiles. The word only is there in order to reduce the cost in a way and to reduce kind of the expectation. So when you don't know what type of quality your customer wants and the customer has no idea what type of quality they want before they see something on the wall, it creates tension between the general contractor or any type of tradesman that is working there and the end customer. So I think that having a designer in most cases solves that. There are pain points working, designers and contractors together, and there is a lot of finger pointing and things like that. So I think there is a lot of place for improvement in the collaboration and definitely a lot of place to educate our customers about what the type of things that they need to look for and what kind of decisions they need to make before you break ground. I think that if we will be able to educate the customers in a manner that they know what decisions they need to make. Even if they don't have a designer, at least that will get us to a certain point of understanding between us and them.
And Florence?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's a little bit kind of the chicken and the egg. So I kind of get brought on early on into the project. And as I'm designing and starting to think about the different spaces, a lack of understanding of the overall costs gets in my way sometimes. I might have a couple of ways to design an area. And is option A a $10,000 line item and option B a $2,000 line item? That's where my knowledge stops in terms of having the experience to have the costs on the contractor side. So I'll give you an example of what's going on right now. I'm designing a new staircase, and I can bring in a metal fabricator to fabricate a metal railing. That's what I've done a lot in the past. Or I can purchase the spindles and get the finished carpenter to install it. And Rodrigo and I actually have been researching that option. Or a third option, what are the costs associated with those different design elements? Because I want to be designing the best option for my clients, but I also want to be cost conscious and know what I'm designing. A lot of the time, the costs are not shared with us because the relationship is between the contractor and the clients. So unless I specifically ask the client for the bids and estimates that they've received, I don't always know the full cost. So involving the contractor early on, I think would be great, but I also understand that contractors don't want to be spending time doing pre-consultations left and right. So when to bring them in, and again, I think that's the purpose of today's talk, is really collaborating all together.
Perfect. And Brad, same question towards you, is challenges that you see facing when there isn't collaboration.
Definitely. I like the way this is flowed, because often, like Florence, we come in early in a project and we help plan ahead. We help sort of preload the project, get some general plan where things are going, and we actually do what we call a preliminary estimate. We tap a contractor we feel understands the size and scale of a project and ask them to give us a high-low number. So that gives us some sense of where we're going and helps the client see that. But I think the challenge is later for us, when it goes into construction, that, as we say, the contractor tends to go into a different lane. Instead of staying in contractor mode and communicating with the designers in our office, that they start doing the design themselves because they feel that that's going to, I don't know exact reasons, but my thought is that maybe it's a way to sort of keep the project moving faster. However, what we do see is the challenge there is staying in the loop, the client and the contractor and our design professionals all staying together and being communicated with as far as decisions and choices to be made, which unfortunately, when that doesn't happen, when that collaboration doesn't stay maintained through the process, you end up with redos and tear-outs and actually extensions in time or in additions in cost, which is really unfair for the client when things could be more efficient if everybody collaborates, which is, again, bringing it back around. The idea of this roundtable really is to sort of shed light on that importance.
Okay, then Zach, a follow-up question from this topic. Do you use any software tools to help customers get a handle on scope and decisions when there is no designer or architect involved in the project?
The answer is yes. We've worked with a few companies. We're very involved with a few startups. We use Salesforce to develop kind of our own CRM that will give like an ecosystem for our clients to be able to follow and to know their schedule of payments, progress of work, and other things. To tell you the truth, it's far, far, far away from being perfect or from even being close to perfect. We found that with working with Salesforce, it was not very effective. That means what we needed in the design was not delivered to us. The process of trying to build something like that is extremely frustrating because there are many elements. As you go, you find out that there are many elements that are missing from the design of what you're doing. We've tried to work with 2 other startups. We're still trying to build something, but if you ask my honest opinion, we're years from having something that will work. Meanwhile, and I want to comment on 2 things that Florence and Brett talked about. My project spend a minimum of 3 hours with every new customer. I don't know how many GCs can say that or how many construction companies do that, but we find that the lack of information that consumers have, it's enormous. Even if they don't understand that or they don't realize that, we bear the responsibility of teaching them and showing them where things can go wrong. I cannot expect a customer that does a remodel twice in their life to know where are the pain points and what they need to focus on. Lauren said that, and Brad commented on this as well, that having a contractor follow the work from the beginning, it's very helpful, and I agree with that. There are 2 problems that I see with it in the industry. Problem number 1 is that GCs feel that they're wasting their time. In my opinion, that's exactly what we are here for. That's why a customer doesn't just hire a bunch of C licenses to do the work. They're looking for a GC exactly for that. They don't need the GC to lay their tiles or to run their electrical wires. They need that consultation. They need that person that will be able to come and share from their expertise, from their experience, from what they've handled with the city and other things. So if a contractor feels that this is a waste of their time just because they need to go and look and give more details and analyze a project with a designer or an architect, in my opinion, they're in the wrong business. That's exactly what we're here for. And if you don't want to do that, you can always be a C license, which is not something that you expect from an electrician, for example. And the second comment that I have is that a lot of the contractors, because they're worried that the pricing they're giving the architect is going to keep them away from the job, they're on purpose underbidding it. That means they know that there is going to be a significant foundation work, or they know that there's going to be something that's going to set the price higher. They just don't disclose it because the architect didn't tell them the foundation plan or all the details. They're just showing them in general what the work is. An experienced GC is supposed to know from the projects that we've done in the past what to expect or what is going to be the direction. But when they misguide the architect and they tell him that the 1,500 square feet addition is going to cost $250,000, and the architect is passing that information on to the customer, what it creates a situation where when the plans are done, either the customer gets a lot of bids that are way higher than what they expected, or they get somebody who sees the opportunity to put a foot in and to hope to pull more money out. So I think that in 2021, this behavior should not exist. And I personally do everything that I can in order to fix that. But I'm a one person. So that's why I think this stage is so good for us to keep promoting information, keep promoting good ethics in this.
So then Brad and Florence, great question for both of you. When a client comes to you before they've had a GC, and then you ask a GC for some quotes and basic pricing and breakdown of what their project cost would be, high, low type of angle, do GCs ever get compensated for their time? Because it sounded like Zach just said, no, that's a contractor that's actually putting in the time to help earn the business.
I think that's been my experience, is that they do not get compensated. I've had kind of both experiences where we've brought in the GC when we had a complete design, and the cost worked out and we moved forward with that. But I think a lot of the time, maybe the design is too complicated. We have to redesign. So far, I've been really lucky to work with great people. So it hasn't been so much of an issue, but I do see an enormous potential for growth and improvements for that process.
Our
Right.
experience has been that we offer it. I don't think in the multitude that we've done, I don't think any contractors actually charged us for it. But it gives, the way I view it, it's an early opportunity to get a contractor who I think is already going to be a good fit for the project, an opportunity to meet and be part of that team, and for the client to get a sense of who they are. I am a big proponent of getting contractors and a team together sooner than later. I think that the entire project benefits from it, that infuses, everybody has a greater sense of the story, of the decisions, the life behind the project, and the personalities. It's kind of unfair to go through the bidding process where in 3 or 4 weeks, a contractor is supposed to understand all the nuances that have been placed into a project, especially personal projects like residences, in that short amount of time, and understand the story. So hopefully, my intent in usually doing those preliminary estimates is that we've talked to people like Florence and Zach. We bring a team together, and we have that opportunity to get a high-low guess on where we are. And it's an estimate, it's a preliminary estimate, but it gives the clients some bearing on where their decisions are going. And it brings them up to speed where, yes, mundane stuff that they don't see, like foundation work and grading and, the porta potty cost. However, they also get an early taste of what kind of decisions they're going to have to make. Is it carpet? Is it hardwood? Is it paint? Or are you going to do a plaster finish on every wall? And how does that what are the ramifications? And they don't have to make hard decisions right away, but that it's that time to get it. And I know I went way off key here, but getting back to it, usually it's an hour and a half, 2-hour meeting. It used to be in person. Now it might be on Zoom, where I'll meet with a contractor separately. And we go through a huge punch list of items tailored for that project, and then we get a high-low at the end, and then that helps keep everybody on track. And I think that also is a great opportunity for everybody involved to understand, hey, I'm going to need to keep this architect in line if you're the contractor, or I'm going to need to keep the GC and the contractor, the GC and the architect and designer in line, as far as communicating, if you're the client. So I think those all work together.
I think piggybacking on what Brad just said, I think we can all be in agreement that the common goals for all of us professionals is to be servicing the client and to make the project the best that it can be. And if we're all working towards that goal, everybody stays in their lane with their expertise and what they're best at, and we all collaborate together early on. In my experience, that's been when the projects have been the best. Leave the ego at the door.
Yeah.
And we all collaborate.
Well said, Florence. That's great.
Yeah.
Nicely said. And
then Florence, what is the difference between a designer and an architect?
Oh, huge difference. First of all, the schooling, right? I mean, is architecture school what, a 5-year program, Brad? I don't even know, to be honest.
It depends. I went through a master's, so that was an additional 3 years after. So
yeah,
there's a lot of licensure involved.
Yeah. So at least in California, I don't think that has changed yet. I know every year that tries to change, but anybody can call themselves an interior designer. I went through a bachelor for interior design, and before that I had a business degree, but there's no certifications per se in California to be called an interior designer.
You can be a certified interior designer.
You can be a certified interior designer. Yeah, so it's a longer conversation.
The
you know,
difference.
there's really talented designers out there that never went to design school. And there's very talented designers who went to design school. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Totally.
You know, there's a lot of difference between a decorator and a designer, and we can go into that too. But architects really, and Brad will describe that better. As an interior designer, I think a lot about space planning for the interior and how the rooms are going to be used. I do detailed elevations, furniture plans, and then of course the materials, all that comes after, and then the furniture and fabrics. But my job starts with, how is the house going to be used? How are the rooms going to be used? How is this family living in this space? And that's where the collaboration with the architect is great, because the architect has the big vision for the entire home and the, you know, spacing of windows outside, and that collaboration I think works great, because I might be thinking, well, on this wall, here is what I'm thinking we're going to have. We're probably going to have the dining table here and then a dresser here. So let's talk about the height of this window that you have here. And let's talk about window treatments. Can we have Roman shades on this window? Can we have drapery panels on this window? So that's really where the collaboration with an architect is great.
And then Brad, if I am, let's say I'm doing a full gut remodel of my home, or even a full kitchen remodel, who do I start with? Do I start with Florence? Do I start with you? Do I start with Zach? As a homeowner, which route do I go to make sure that I'm not overspending or creating, you know, more work that didn't need to be done? Where do I start, Brad?
For a smaller remodel like that? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm saying from small to large, right?
Small to
So
large.
from a kitchen remodel, not just a small bathroom, but a good sized kitchen remodel, or a full blown gut and we're redoing the whole house. Where do I start? What's my best angle to go on the smaller side and the larger side of a resi?
Well, I think that you can start with either one of the three. The issue is, I think it is up to us as professionals to know when we need to bring in other people. And I think a challenge for contractors, from what I've seen, is knowing that there are professionals that can help through the building process with decisions to help that process go smoother. And like Florence said, in the service of the client, in the best interest of helping people do what and it's what we love to do. That's why we're here, is to help people and design and create and collaborate. I think there's so much energy when we all can just get along.
Yeah.
But seriously, it's about you know, where to start. I've got a master suite remodel, but I also want to add a playroom. Well, maybe the first thing I think is I got to get it built, so I'll call the contractor. Well, the contractor may say, great, I'm glad that this is what you want to do. By the scale of this project, let me recommend A, B, C, and D architects, because it's going to make sure that you're going through planning. You have to make sure you're not building out into a side yard. You have to make sure you're not building above your building height, what the zoning is, etc. I've got a kitchen remodel. This kitchen sucks and I want a better breakfast area, but I'm not pushing out the building and I'm not changing anything structural. Oh, here, why don't we start with a designer that I know that can really help us move everything around and really get you the best use of the space and get finishes that work together. Lastly, I've got this great big house. Architect, what do I do? Well, here's some ideas. Let's bring in some teammates. Let's bring in a contractor and a designer to help us get some vision on this, just preliminarily, get a master plan going. Let's make sure we're going in the right direction, both from a design sense and from a budget sense, and make sure this is going to fit for you before we go way down the road filing for permits, and then you start getting pricing going, wait a minute, I thought I was going to build a house and I only have, enough for like a quarter of it. So where to start? I'm Zach, Florence, chime in here, but I think that it really is, you could start with any one of those people. It's a matter of every one of us knowing that it takes us as a community to make successful projects.
So Zach, let me rephrase that question for you, because all three of you have hit on in your own sections, collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. And I know how you operate, and it's not just design and architect, it's all the subcontractors that you interface with. That is about the collaboration. It's not just these three seats, it's all of us, me included, right? So Zach, I come to you with the remodel, the importance of collaboration. I know how important that is to you. When and how, give us an idea, an example of when you bring in a designer or when you bring in a subcontractor, roofing, solar guy to discuss a potential of that. Can you collaborate a little bit on that with us?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've noticed, especially when we're going to new construction appointments, if it's ADUs, if it's additions, new homes, one of the things that we see that customers tell us, well, I don't want to go ahead and pay for plans if I don't know what's going to be my end number. That means as a contractor, you can give a ballpark. The more experience you have, obviously, the ballpark is going to be closer to reality. But I've had jobs where the soil engineer came in and said the soil is too soft. We had to go 12 foot deep with the foundation, or we had to change the type of the foundation to helical piers, for example. So a lot of the customers, they say, I get the ballpark, but if you cannot guarantee a price, I don't want to pay for plans and then find out that I cannot afford it. It's a very, very tricky situation to be in as a contractor, because on one end, you wanna win the business, as I think every normal person that's in business to make money. And on the other hand, so you don't want to give them a high number. On the other hand, you also don't want to tell them, well, I don't really know what's going to be the end goal. Now, at the point that they calling you to talk about the addition, you have no idea what type of finishes they want. Are they going to do a level 5 on the walls, or are they going to do a spray texture? Are they going to be solar panels, or they want to do it, they just run a gas line, and so on and so forth. So the way that I usually deal with that kind of situation is I tell them the truth. There is no way that anybody that's going to walk through your door is going to give you an out the door number. And yes, you have to purchase those plans if you're planning on expanding your home. Those plans don't have an expiration date. That means you paid for them, you cannot afford it today, you'll afford it next year. If you're not serious about the remodel, then don't go into it. If you're not serious about the addition, don't go into it. If you're not willing to pay the X amount that it's costing you to create those plans, then you're not at the stage where you actually want to do an addition. You're exploring, and exploring, you'll only get ballparks. The problem starts when contractors come after me and they tell them, oh, I have done an exact same square feet, 2 streets to the right, and it cost the customer Y. And now the consumer thinks that, oh, great, I have a number. I know how much I'm going to spend. I'm going to go and hire that architect and engineer and go ahead and do it. Then they get the set of plans, and suddenly that contractor that was so confident that he gave them the right price suddenly sees that the work is double of what he expected. And in my opinion, this is the core problem in our industry. I'm third generation contractor. My folks came from Russia. They've done cement and brick over there. All of my brothers are computer engineers. I'm the only one who continued in this business. And I felt that what I wanted from that business is that change. I think that education and information, it's not a bad word. And it's not something that contractors needs to be afraid of, because the day that they will understand that by making the customer's life easier, more honest and more smooth, we will all have more business. This industry will look better, and nobody will have to underbid the job because they're afraid that their sales techniques are not good enough in order to get it. But when you have one contractor that does it and another one that doesn't, then you have a problem. Then you have a whole population of people that are basically misguided. A contractor who take the simplest remodel, take a tub bathroom remodel. He spends 15 minutes in gathering the information and the sizes and sends an estimate. I'm sorry for the language, but his estimate is bullshit. He has no idea on the levels of finish. He has no idea what type of quality they want. He has no idea what materials they're going to choose. But he sends the minimum number that will get him in the door. And that approach, in my personal opinion, needs to be eliminated. There needs to be more technology in this business. Estimates needs to be really detailed. Not how much it's costing me to run the dedicated line or how much you're charging me for the tiles, but what are you actually going to do? What type of finishes are you going to do? Are you going to use a metal schluter? You're going to use a miter cut? You're going to do level 5? All of those questions, nobody talks about it. You go to be the kitchen remodeling, you don't even look at the electrical panel. Because if you look at the electrical panel, you might find out that they need to upgrade it, and that's going to have to push your price up. But you want to have foot in the door. So that mentality, and this is something that I've been in America for 10 years. I've only experienced it here. There can be a change, and our collaboration as an industry, designers, architects, GCs, can be better. We can make people's lives much, much smoother and easier. Construction doesn't need to be a nightmare, but it's all depends on us, on how we all work together as an industry. Sorry, I took a lot of your time.
No, it's awesome. You were into it, man. I loved it. I was totally into it. I could feel you. And what first popped into my mind, being in the roofing and solar side, you can't even sometimes guarantee a bid with the freaking pandemic pricing. Plywood a year ago was $17 a sheet. Now I'm paying $67. I have roofing contracts that signed 6 months ago that need plywood that now I'm losing money on.
Yeah.
I can't go back to that owner because I'm not going to change order and, pull that BS. Of course, change orders can happen. There's always hidden things in walls. There's always crappy work done from 40 years ago that's unforeseen. But I completely agree with you, Zach. I have so many times where my bid is 20% more, but I've built in the main service panel upgrade, or I've built in the plywood cost, or I've built in the fascia boards being replaced, gutters included. And they come out with a low price and then change order it 2 months into it while they're on site. What's an owner supposed to do then?
Because you did your due diligence, but 90% of the people after you didn't do the due diligence, and the customer has no idea that they need to do this due diligence. That's exactly where all of those problems are coming from. That's why courts are full with lawsuits, and that's why I don't know anybody that enjoyed the process of remodeling. Exactly because of that.
Yeah. All right, so now we're onto this collaboration idea, and one of the things, Zach, that you said really well that I want to push at Florence here. How do we get away from the old stigma, the old school conversation of, oh, I can do it all, or you don't need that, or designers are overrated? And then when they do bring them all in, and you've got that old school meathead contractor that doesn't want to give you the time of day because your title is a designer, right? How do we break that old mold? And this is both for Brad and Florence, but Florence, I'd like you to take it first. How do we break that old mold so we don't end up 6 months down a process supposed to be completed and everybody's pointing fingers at the other person? How do we start to break that process? Because like Zach said, it's 2021. Come on. There's so much technology in the world. Let's grow up.
Yeah. I'm going to say something maybe not very popular, but I only work with nice people. So I've had great luck, with contractors, builders, clients, knock on wood so far, but I think I'm a pretty intuitive person, and I get to know people's businesses. That's something that I wanted to say earlier because Brad started touching on that subject. I meet with contractors for coffee, before the pandemic. I meet with architects for coffee. I try to understand how they work, what their ideal clients and projects are. I tell them what I'm looking for. And as the years go by, that might change, companies' growth might affect that, and whatever they were looking for years ago might be different now. But as I'm understanding their businesses, then when I'm meeting with clients, and the answer to your question earlier for me is designers should be coming in early and first, because we can answer the questions that Zach just mentioned. We can tell Zach, we're going to do quartz, not marble. We're going to do a $50 square foot tile, not a $10 square foot tile. We're going to want Schluter here. We're going to want level 5. So that's why the designer needs to come in first. But as I'm meeting with potential clients and I'm meeting with clients, I know a few contractors, I know a few architects. And so already I'm thinking in my mind who might be a good fit for this project and who might be a good team. I always tell potential clients to really think of it as a team and how we're working together. And is it a good fit personality wise? Not just look at the numbers and the bottom line. How are we all going to problem solve as a team, and not point fingers? How are we going to move forward with solution? Because there's always going to be issues no matter what. Things are going to come up. So I don't know what the question was originally. Sorry, I got lost. But my point is, as we're getting to know each other's businesses, that's where we can refer each other the best and be the best fit. And moving forward, collaborate.
So my takeaway, Florence, from what you said is the reason why all these wonderful people are part of the Marin Builders Association is because typically we care a little bit more about our clients. We care a little bit more about our businesses. We care about our reputation. And this is how we meet great people.
Yeah.
Completely agree with you. I haven't had that many issues, but because of the rebuilds and seeing different things, there's Right Residential that does things such a beautiful processed way. And then there's some others that I won't name so we don't throw people underneath the bus that could give two rats, just give me this. I don't care. This is what the client wants. And there's never any sort of client interaction. They just want me to hand off bids. Like I'm just some 2-bit schmuck. And so that's where I run into. So Brad, on your end, collaboration, how do we break that old stigma? How do we get much more people like you three working together, not pointing fingers in the end, actually discussing with the client why the delay was because of jurisdiction or because of delay on supply chains, things like that? How do we get away from the finger pointing and get much more to a harmonious project together?
Well, it's been touched on by all of us, and I'll just reiterate, it's about communication. It's about admitting when it's beyond your briefcase of tools, when it's beyond your toolkit, knowing when to stay in your lane. As an architect, I'm not going to try and impose how I feel a nail should be driven into a stud. That's not for me to do. That's for the contractor to figure out, or what scenario of what steps to take to make a building assembled properly. And as an architect, I love, to me, architecture doesn't stop at just building walls and locating windows. It's about the form, space, it's light. It is about finishes and colors, but that is where I know I don't have the wealth of knowledge that someone like Florence does, and that's their schooling is in that more realm of finishes and furniture and the look and feel that enhances the architecture that we do. So again, it's collaboration, it's communication, and it's also, I think Florence said, leaving the ego at the door, or was it Zach or Florence? But in any case, it's kind of a theme here. It's not about trying to prove that you can solve everything yourself. It's about proving that you, with the team, can create an amazing end result. And there's a friend of mine who said, and I love this quote, I'm not looking for projects. I'm looking for great people, because with great people come great projects.
Yeah.
And that, I think everybody has been in that position where you're working with a client, collaborating, and they're letting you have that, they're giving you the free rein to be, and they trust you because of your vision and your communication, and because of the team that you've brought on, whoever you may be. that really brings life and joy, and you can feel it in the end result.
And then Zach, in about 2 minutes or less, because we got to wrap up and open it up to the table here. We're having such a great time here. Where does the responsibilities lie in this type of scenario in collaboration?
That's a great question. So a lot of the projects that I have seen, there is a lot of finger pointing, and the responsibilities of who's responsible for what, it's very tricky. And I think that it starts from not sharing the expectations. So I'll give you an example. I've worked with a designer on a big project in Sebastopol. It was $2 million renovation. The clients purchased through the designer, I would say about $350,000 worth of finished materials, cabinets, bars, windows, all kinds of things. The designer calls me and says, Zach, I need you to open all of the boxes and make sure that all of the material that arrived is in good condition. This is something that I will decline immediately, because first of all, it's not an expectation that was set with me to begin with. That means if I need to take something like that, that means I'm taking responsibility for the materials you bought. There is no scenario in this world I'm doing something like that without getting paid for it, because if my worker didn't see a scratch on a vanity, who's gonna pick up the bill for the new vanity? Me, because I took the responsibility. So if you are providing materials to your client, be due diligent and go and check the materials that are supposed to arrive to the job site. I had another scenario where there was 7 bathrooms in a house, and every bathroom had a different type of grab bars and handlebars and whatnot. The designer says, well, it's all in the garage. Now you think I'm going to spend a day to go and figure out which bar goes where? Come, mark them, put numbers on them. I don't care, put names on them. But a lot of the people that are working in our industry, they're throwing that responsibility on somebody else because they have another job to be there, because they don't have the time to come to the job site, etc. I think that once you have a collaboration, each party needs to understand what is their responsibility. And if you're looking for a contractor to do something, or if a client is looking for their designer to make sure the material arrived is in good condition, that person needs to be compensated for it. And if you're not setting that expectation, to tell, oh, I'm disappointed, or I was under the impression, which is the sentence I hate, I hate more than the sentence, I was under the impression. I spend hours explaining myself and going in circles so a person understands. Under the impression, it just drives me nuts. But I see this as a very big pain point in our industry when we are throwing responsibilities on each other. If my tile guy put the tile crooked, I'll buy new tiles and I'll redo it. But I cannot take responsibility of other parties. And same for them. I'm not expecting Florence to pay for the new tiles because my guy did a bad job or something like that. So the responsibilities and the expectations, it needs to be set from the beginning. It's not something that can be set as the work goes. It needs to be discussed, and the longer the discussion is, usually those things will come up in the conversation.
Hey, can I chime in here on something,
Brad.
Ben? So, Stacy, thank you for putting up your note there about bringing it, you sort of going to the team before bringing up to the client, because that is something that's a great example of team collaboration and communication. I've been in situations where the client is alerted by the general contractor before the general contractors talk to me, and we've had a chance to work through some scenarios, some pluses or minuses, or maybe even resolved it without having to go to the client, and it seems seamless from the client's point of view. Whereas if it goes directly to the client, all of a sudden they've got this weight on their shoulders without the experience of what to do, and they think the world's crashing down around them. Not only that, but they don't feel like they've got the support of the team that they've hired to be doing the work. So Stacy, I want to.
Yeah, Stacy, please.
Yeah, I've been doing this for decades. And my dad was a structural engineer. I'm really good at knowing what I don't know, right? And I don't need to pretend I know things I don't know. And I just want a really great result. And there have been many times that I've come up with kind of off the wall ideas for construction or for a design or something. And before I get the client all excited about it, I want to make sure that it's, number one, it's possible, it's feasible. And I don't want a contractor who's going to say, you know, oh no, you can't do it. And then I end up being, you know, like, oh, well, what if we try to do it, you know, trying to, you know, what's the word I'm trying to say?
Coerced.
Or suggest strong. I used to bartend when I was in college, right? So it's kind of that kind of relationship. It's like, because I know it can be done, right? And they just need to decide that that's something that they want to do. You know, you want to have fun with what it is that you're creating, and then go to the client and say, well, we can do it, but it's, you know, I'm not sure if it's going to be in your budget or not, right? And then the client can make an informed decision.
Yeah, the difference between this cannot be done versus I don't want to do it.
Exactly, yeah.
So if you're telling me it can be done, I will accept that. If you're telling me you don't want to do it, that's another story. If you don't want to do it, there's a cost to that. So tell me the cost, and then I can go to the client and present the client with the cost. I think, Stacy, what you just said is sometimes we are in a little bit in the dark in terms of cost. And I said that earlier, but because the contract is between the contractor and the client, sometimes we're completely kept out of the loop in terms of numbers. So, it's hard to know if our design is a 50K design or a 10K design as we're moving forward with our ideas.
Mm-hmm.
If I can tag in on that also, our client is our client. We can't be supposing or thinking, oh, well, they're going to want this when we don't. We have to be able to come to them with well thought out options. And even if it's, well, if we're thinking ahead here, and if we're continuing down this path, we're seeing an issue is going to come up and it's going to cost X. Whereas if we take this path over here, we've already talked about some options, it's going to cost a little less than X. However, X is where you were originally headed. Do you want to go with the option that's a little less than X, or you want to keep going with X? And give that, they are our client, but that's what they're relying on us to do. And I think that's what everyone here is starting basically saying is they're relying on us to communicate with them, not only how things are progressing, but to let them know when there might be a change or there might be an option that could be a plus or a minus, a savings or a little extra add. They need to hear that from us.
And they love knowing that this group of professionals that they've put together or brought together are all talking about their project and all wanting to work on their behalf, right? That's, how cool is that, right? So.
And if I can come back around to collaboration, if we're with a client and they're trying to talk one-on-one with us without the other teammates, that is also, as an industry, that is an opportunity for us to say, you know what? That's a good question. I love where you're going with moving those windows. However, I need to talk with a structural, and let's talk with the general about this too. And since we're moving windows, there might be a change to some of the drape sizes we've got going on here. So let's bring this to the team, right? Just as a for instance, because they're talking with one person doesn't mean that one person has to come up with a solution. Because they're talking to one person, it's just at that moment, that one person is the spokesperson for the team, but needs to circle back through to the team with those ideas, as mundane as it may seem, because we're all working with a vision of this project from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a few minutes left. Is there anybody else out there that has a question they'd like to pose to the roundtable we have together?
I'll just chime in here. this is super interesting. I mean, I feel like we've got the three different sort of legs of construction: contractor, architect, designer, basically all saying the same thing about this problem of, collaborating with the client and putting a team together. I mean, what do you guys see? Have you found anything that works? Like, how do we solve this problem of sort of setting the right expectations with homeowners and getting that collaboration going?
I think we touched on this earlier, but there's a lot of education that we have to do with our clients early on. And even if I'm on a call with a potential client, and even if it's not maybe going to be the right fit for me, I try to pass on a lot of information and prepare potential clients with what's to come. Because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and the whole HGTV doesn't help where rooms and homes get transformed overnight. So I think we touch on some solutions, which is bring in the team together early on and have the team be a good fit and manage the expectations with the clients early on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important subject.
Mhm.
You get a new lead, you get an appointment, you meet a new customer. The first thing we need to do as an industry is to educate them. We cannot just walk in and spend 15 minutes, trying to do the minimum that we can in order to figure out how much we want to charge them. We actually need to give them tools to analyze the bids they're getting, or exploring their options. There is no way around it.
Yeah.
Education definitely is paramount at the early start. And I also very early on in that first conversation, even just expressed to clients, so just so you know, here's how we work. This is our system. And if they start to balk at it, then I know that they're not gonna fit with us. As much as I try to educate them early on, that's also an indicator to me that they're trying to go with a different system. And I just, over the years of what we've done, we all have been there. We know there are things that work and things that don't. And if you try to circumnavigate those things that do work, you're not actually going to save yourself anything.
And Michelle Goodman, did you have something to add?
Hi, I was just going to say that I think offering as much transparency as possible creates trust within the team, but also with the client. Like Brad was saying, if a client is speaking directly to you about an issue and you say, well, yeah, we should probably consult the designer because that can have, an impact on the window treatments, and, just kind of always bringing it back to the team and sharing those insights, not being afraid. Like Zach said, sometimes contractors are afraid to disclose what they think the real cost is because then they won't get the bid. That's really important, and it does help all of us in the community by creating realistic expectations. Because it's not just communication; it's managing people's expectations at every step of the way that creates that trust and helps ensure a successful result, for the whole team. And I just love everything that you guys have said. This has been a really valuable discussion. So
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I want to add to that too, that I say to all my staff, because I'm in a very different industry. Roofing is not the way solar is, but solar is so oversaturated. It is a sales company. It isn't construction. Yes, there is construction involved. But one of the hardest things that I notice for most GCs that I run into is, sure, they educate, but they educate on what they know and what they're experts at. And it really takes a lot more listening. So I always teach my staff to educate by listening, because they may not know how to say what they want, but if you ask the right questions, you will guide them to what they're looking for. And Stacy, you had something to add?
I do. I mean, to Florence's point, clients don't know what they don't know, right? They think they know all this because they see these TV shows, or their neighbor did a remodel or whatever, or they think, oh, this contractor, he can do everything. He'll just pull it all together. They don't understand that you do have a choice with tile, between $5 a square foot and, $150 a square foot. and that they do have a choice within that. You know, let's say they don't want to do the whole kitchen at you know, with $150 square foot tile, but they could do accents or something, right? They could play with the design to get it into their budget, but it shouldn't cut the budget off without understanding all the pieces that get to go into it. There are literally hundreds and thousands of moving parts, right, in construction. And it all comes back to educating the client properly and letting them know that there is a whole world out there that they get to play in, but they do need guides.
That is a great segue from my comment, which is one of the premises of our publication, the Marin Home Resource Guide, is to help educate your clients so that they make better clients for you all to work with. So on our website, under the homeowners tab and also under the members tab, you can find digital versions of all of our past guides. There you go, Brad. Thank you. I mean, Ben. And Brad actually has been
Always
a
got my
former,
next Steve. Always with me.
contributor
Next
and
edition.
more.
You
So
guys
it's all
are
about
on it.
educating the client, and there's some great resource pieces that are library value, that are timeless, that I have found our members use and link to their clients, say, read this before I work with you. And it just has been helpful. So July's will be the next release, but the other ones are already digital and on our website. So feel free to use anything that's valuable there. Thank you.
So on that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us today.